Hey, what's up, guys? This is D, and you're watching the Rear Naked Podcast. I want to thank you guys for continuing to support the channel so far. And if you haven't already, do me a favor, go to YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Rear Naked Podcast. First thing we're going to be talking about on the show is a couple of things from Saturday's card and some recent UFC news. First and foremost, the Ally Quinta versus Cowboy Cerrone fight from Saturday. Hell of a fight, fight of the night bonus for both of those guys, and very well deserved on both ends. Not only does Cowboy always, usually draw the kind of fight and card that brings a fight of the night bonus and hold multiple other records, including the most UFC wins in history. But Li Quinta, tough as hell, man. A lot of people really count Al out of a lot of the equation most of the time, and if Al hasn't already with his fight with Khabib and what he did to Lee recently by shutting him up and sending him back into the 170 division, if that didn't already prove how tough Al was, Al's never been knocked out and he still hasn't been knocked out. A lot of people, including myself, thought that somebody like Cowboy would be the one to do it, if anybody, with his head kicks and whatnot. So hell of a tough guy, man. For him to be able to take a front kick to the head like he did, and a number of other significant strikes to the head, and still not be able to be finished, man, it says a lot about Al's toughness. So Al, definitely one of the toughest guys in the division, but as Cowboy has said, he's on a mission right now. He come down from 170 to 155, and he's won out so far in that, and he seems to be working his way towards that belt, and that's what he's got his eye on. So I think we're going to see next up for him probably Tony Ferguson, or maybe even a Conor fight, according to Dana yesterday. Said that he'd still like to see Conor and Cowboy fight. So both of those fights make sense if you ask me. Obviously I'd still like to see Diaz and McGregor finish out with their trilogy, but no matter who Conor comes back against, I think it's a lose-lose situation for him, because whether you put Conor in there against a guy like Al, or Cowboy, or Nate, or Khabib, I think he loses all of those fights no matter what. So he just has to decide which way he wants to retire, and who he wants to have send him packing. So honestly, it's going to be money for either end of the fight for that, and I think that's all he really cares about at this point. So and the fact that he got to cherry pick all his fights starting out and really didn't get to fight any real names until he got to Jose Aldo, I think it's a fitting exit for a guy like Conor McGregor, man. Not to take anything away from any of the fights that he did win in spectacular fashion, but anybody knows me knows I'm not the biggest Conor McGregor fan at all, and I'm definitely looking to see some things be settled up with him. So I think either of those guys, no matter who you put him against, Conor gets his shit together and comes back and fight. I'd love to see him fight Nate, Cowboy, or Al. I think if he gets the Khabib rematch right away, it's kind of bullshit. But even if he gets that, Khabib's going to put him away. So, and we got Khabib taking on Poirier in possibly September is what it looks like right now. So it's going to be a while before that even happens, because say Khabib defends his title with Poirier there, then I'm sure Khabib's not going to be able to fight, or not going to want to fight, anytime soon with Conor. If they put together a fight with Conor right after the Poirier fight, I would anticipate them probably spending at least 3 to 6 months promoting the shit out of that. So, it'd be interesting to see what's still going on in the lightweight division. We got Poirier sitting there with the interim title, and Tony coming on social media yesterday and saying that he was back and he was only doing champ shit. So, Dana said that both of those fights make sense. I think both of them make sense as well. I'd love to see Cowboy fight Ferguson or Conor. So we'll see what happens with that. And that being said, we'll jump into UFC 237. It's going on this Saturday, May 11th in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Main fight, obviously, we got Rose Namajunas taking on Jessica Andrade. Probably Rose's toughest challenge to date, with Andrade being such a powerful striker, and just having such a smaller base and whatnot. She had at 5'2". Although it's somewhat of a disadvantage with the reach advantage that Rose presents. Just the power and the overall intensity of the way that Andrade is known for fighting, I think, is going to present the toughest challenge that Rose has faced so far. The fact that she was able to overcome Joanna twice shows me that there's a reason why Rose is one of my favorite fighters. Her striking has improved just ridiculously. Every single fight that she fights, her striking improves tenfold. So I don't think we've seen the best out of Rose yet, and I'm really hoping that she'll be able to defend this title. And I think she doesn't have a problem with things like this. She welcomed going to Brazil, going into enemy territory, and taking on a hostile crowd and a tough opponent like Jessica Andrade, because Andrade, as everybody knows, coming from the bantamweight division, coming down 20 pounds, and she's not really losing a whole lot of muscle with that weight cut, and she seems to be able to handle the weight cut as well too. So yeah, it's going to be a hell of a fight, man. The way that Andrade comes in there and rushes and likes to swing for the fences, man, this could definitely be a fight of the night bonus for sure, another fight of the night. So we'll see what happens with that. And then on the co-main event, we've got Jared Cannonier taking on Anderson Silva in probably what is Silva's retirement fight. A lot of people, including myself, expect Anderson Silva to probably lay the gloves down after this fight. So, dangerous fight for him, man. If he comes away with the win, it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool for him to retire at home as the underdog in a fight like that. But, considering the fact that, he didn't really do anything spectacular against Adesanya and looked a little bit slower, I think that a guy like Cannonier is just too dangerous for Silva where he's at in this point in his career right now. Either way, it's going to be cool to see Anderson Silva be able to retire in his hometown. So looking forward to seeing that fight. And then you got Jose Aldo in the featherweight division taking on Volkanovski, who's on a 16-fight win streak. So he's the guy to beat, man. That's going to be a dope fight to watch. And then also kicking off the prelim card earlier on in the night, we got BJ Penn taking on Clay Guida. So a lot of fights to look forward to Saturday. Obviously starting with the main event, but the co-main and the prelim card is packed with a lot of big names and a lot of guaranteed good fights. All right, so we'll jump over to a couple of the fan questions now, and our first question comes from Aaron in Portland, and Aaron asked, "Who are my top 3 toughest fighters in the UFC?" Great question, Aaron. Number 1, obviously, is going to be Nate Diaz, and then I think number 2, probably go with Al Iaquinta. Al's been in a lot of tough fights, man, and you can see while he hasn't come away on the winning end of most of them, he's never been finished, man, and especially after this weekend and getting kicked in the face and punched in the face multiple times by a guy with such a high-level striking like Cowboy Cerrone, man. That definitely shows the toughness, especially after going the distance with Khabib and what he did to Kevin Lee. Al's definitely one of the toughest guys in the UFC, man, and definitely one of the toughest in the lightweight division. Then after that, probably go with my boy Eric Anders, man. Eric Anders, one of those guys that just he steps in on a moment's notice in multiple weight classes when they need him, and takes on a lot of tough opponents, man, and he's a hard guy to finish as well, man. Just as hard to finish, if not harder to finish than Al is. So, and we saw that in Eric's last fight as well, man. He just would not stop, and it goes to a decision almost every time with Anders because of how tough he is. So, Nate Diaz, Al Iaquinta, Eric Anders, man. That's my answer for those 3. Second question Comes from Roger in Detroit, Michigan. He wanted to know my all-time favorite submission. Roger, I'll give you two examples of my favorite submissions. Another Diaz thing I know, but the Diaz versus Pellegrino bout, he got that no hands triangle choke on Curtis Pellegrino, man, and finished him with both hands in the air. Like, that shit was amazing. I don't care who you ask. Like, there's a reason why you can't fuck around with those guys on the ground. You know, their boxing is great, and they love to scrap, and they love to keep it on their feet. But you go to the ground with either of the Diaz brothers, and there's a good chance you're going to sleep, man. And Nate showed us that with that fight, man. That's one of my favorite submissions of all time. Nate Diaz getting the no-hands triangle choke on Kurt Pellegrino. Then after that, probably go with Tony Amada in his fight against Jorge Masvidal. He got a reverse triangle choke while he was on Masvidal's back, and Masvidal was trying to pick him up for a slam and choked him out, put Masvidal to fucking sleep, man, and his head hit the mat, and that's how he got out of that. So those are my two favorite submissions of all time, man. Diaz versus Pellegrino in the no hands triangle, and Tony Amada versus Masvidal with the reverse triangle while he's on his back. So if you haven't seen those, definitely go look them up. You'll see those and a bunch of other dope submissions. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for the fan questions this week, and we're going to jump over and take a look at the fight picks now. All right, guys, so kicking things off in the early prelims of UFC 237 this Saturday, May 11th, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We got Talita Bernardo versus Melissa Gatto in the women's bantamweight division. We've got Gatto in that fight. And then going up to the men's bantamweight division, we got Heoni Barcelos taking on Carlos Joaquin, and we're going to go with Barcelos on that fight. Then moving up to the welterweight division, we got Warley Alvarez taking on Sergio Moraes, and we think Moraes is probably going to win that. Then we got Luana Carolina taking on Priscilla Cachoeira in the women's flyweight bout. We think Cachoeira probably come away with the win there. Then kicking things off on the prelim card, we got BJ Penn taking on Clay Guida. A lot of people think that Clay Guida probably going to win this fight, but we think Penn's probably going to come away with another upset win on this one. So we got Penn for that fight. Moving up to bantamweight division women, we got Irene Aldana taking on Beth Correa, and we got Aldana for that one. Then going up to the lightweight division, we got Thiago Moises taking on Kurt Hollowbach, and I think Moises is probably going to win that fight. And the last fight in the prelim card, we got Antonio Nogueira Nogueira taking on Ryan Spann, and think that Nogueira probably going to win that one. Then moving on to the main card, we got Francisco Trinaldo taking on Diego Ferreira, and we got Ferreira in that fight. And coming up to the men's welterweight division, we got Thiago Alves taking on Laureano Staropoli, and I think Staropoli probably going to finish that fight. Then Jose Aldo taking on Alexander Volkanovski in the men's featherweight division. Got a Volkanovski in that fight, man. That could go either way, but we think that probably going to be Volkanovski in that one. Then in the co-main event, got Anderson Silva taking on Jared Cannonier. Now, Cannonier, a very dangerous opponent for Anderson Silva at this point in his career. A lot of people seeing it, and I saw it as well. Anderson Silva slowing down considerably, especially in his last bout versus Adesanya. So yeah, man, this could go either way as well. But I think Cannonier probably going to win this fight, and then Anderson Silva's probably going to retire after that. And then in the main event, we got Rose Namajunas taking on Jessica Andrade, the women's strawweight title. This is Rose's second title defense, third title fight in the UFC. We're going to go with Rose on this one, and although I think it's going to be a hell of a tough fight for her, I think that if Andrade rushes her too quick and gets her on the ground, if she doesn't get her to sleep with a couple of hard shots right away, I don't think she stands a chance on the ground with Rose either, because her submission game's no joke. I think Rose is sitting at somewhere around 67% submission finishes with her fights, and like 22-23% decision fights, so in the rest knockout. yeah, with her striking improving the way that it does every fight and the way that she doesn't fuck around and takes this so seriously, man, I think Rose is definitely going to come away with this fight. And regardless of what happens with that fight, we're definitely hoping to try to get her on the show as soon as they get back. I'm sure they're going to take a little vacation time. But no matter what, we're going to try to get Rose on the show as soon as possible for you guys. And so that's going to be it for the fight picks this week, guys. Remember, if you want to get your fight picks in, you can submit them to rearnakedpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send them to us here at the Facebook page at The Rear Naked Podcast. So let us know if you pick a perfect fight, then whoever gets a perfect card picked every week is going to win a free Rear Naked Podcast t-shirt and a chance to be on the show. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for the show this week. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, like I said, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Head over to Facebook and Instagram. You can follow us at The Rear Naked Podcast. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.